On the line with us is Rachel Bitecofer, the founder of StrikePAC.com, contributor to The Cycle on Substack, a pod host, the Election Whisperer on podcasts, her Twitter handle at StrikePAC, P-A-C, or at Rachel Bitecofer, Rachel Bitecofer. Rachel, welcome back to the program. I saw your tweet about Ron DeSantis and his death cult. In fact, the hashtag DeathSantis, all one word. Tell me about this. Well, what you actually wrote is, I wonder if Ron DeSantis will be laughing when StrikePAC puts him on public trial for killing thousands of Floridians via cruel indifference and copious greed. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that drove me absolutely nuts in 2020, that the Democrats didn't turn the entire cycle on a referendum on not just Trump, but the entire Republican Party, and particularly its callous, cruel indifference towards COVID. We saw many of the red states reopen only as the pandemics were hitting their states. I mean, it was a very beginning of the first surge when Georgia and Florida, Texas, just reopened in the face of science. So it would have been, to me, smart to prosecute them for that, to make it very clear that these are a set of decisions that were made. It's not some fate that the country was always destined to, account for 20% of the world's COVID deaths. In fact, even according to Trump's own metrics, that was unlikely.
Yeah,
so I think we just lost.
We are a little less than 4% of the world's population, and we have 20% of the world's COVID deaths, which is mind-boggling. Right. I mean, when you think of it. So are you actually, as StrikePAC, actually filing a lawsuit against DeSantis, or are you encouraging others?
Oh, no. I mean, I would strongly, I always think about things like, how would I handle this? I mean, to me, I would be livid if I was one of these family members, especially ones who would maybe drink, Fox News Kool-Aid, and they were told not to worry about it, right? I mean, Donald Trump himself goes, he gets COVID. Of course he does. But he's lucky. He gets it right when they figure out that there's a treatment that can, sometimes stave off death. And that was right when the antiviral, IV antiviral methodology was first discovered. In terms, he comes back from the hospital and tells everybody, not only did he survive because he's more manly than everybody else, but that they should just not even be afraid of COVID, right? So to me, it seems natural that people are going to be looking to hold people responsible in the civil litigation system. That won't be what StrikePAC does. StrikePAC will be holding and conducting a trial for DeSantis, for Abbott, for Ducey in Arizona, and others like them, in terms of the electoral context, and make sure that voters pass a verdict on their performance managing the government.
Well, in that context, in that electoral context, I saw an interesting piece. This was published over on Axios this morning. Rural Democrats run from the party. And what they pointed out is that after 4 years of listening to President Trump, many rural voters are reflexively distrustful of progressive solutions to everything from the pandemic to infrastructure. In a three-minute ad for his Senate campaign, Congressman Tim Ryan of Ohio, who's running for that open Senate seat, Rob Portman is retiring, never says he's a Democrat. Democratic strategists are advising candidates to focus on populist economic policies, on labor rights, broadband, climate, and infrastructure, which are all popular in rural areas, as opposed to even saying, I'm a Democrat. What's going on? It seems to me like the Republican Party has been trying really hard to be the ones who define the brand of the Democratic Party, and that the principal way they're trying to create that brand is through things like defund the police and Black Lives Matter, and basically, in a shout out to the white racist base of the Republican Party, and frankly, the white racists who are typically voting Democratic or independents.
Yeah, so here's the deal. I mean, it's shocking to me, and it's certainly not candidates' fault. They hire teams and teams tell them how to run. But it's shocking to me, how infantile our understanding of how modern election behavior occurs is, given the rich breadth and depth of political science research, which would say, okay, look, we're looking at Ohio. We have these long-term realignments going on in our electorate with non-college educated whites, especially moving to the right, college educated whites moving to the left. When you look at a rural area, it looks like geography, but increasingly it's race and education that's going to divide that segment up. And so the idea that you can come in, I mean, to me, like, it's every loser playbook that's ever been written would tell Tim Ryan, try to tell people, try not to let people know you're a Democrat, okay? Okay, well, what does that do? It does two things, right? Number one, it's impossible because the Republican Party will indict Tim Ryan for being a Democrat and tie him, regardless of his real positions, to defund police and socialism and all of that. Right. So you can't escape it. And number two, even if you could, what does it tell to these few swing voters that are out there? Okay, your opponent's message is, don't vote for this guy. He sucks. His party sucks. And your message is, oh, I'm not one of those people, right? And then you're reaffirming all of the branding and negative associations that people have about the Democratic Party. And it's just literally like, you can ask all these blue dog Democrats that got wiped out in 2014 how good that works for them.
So it sounds like what the solution that you're proposing, and you're one of the smartest observers of this I know. The solution that you're proposing, Rachel Bitecofer, is that Democrats proudly say, I'm a Democrat, and then go on to define what that means. I'm in support of labor unions and higher minimum wage. I'm in support of everybody having access to affordable health care. I'm in favor of eliminating student debt, giving everybody access to education. I'm in favor of rebuilding America's infrastructure and doing it in a way that reduces our reliance on foreign fossil fuels, where we're shipping millions of dollars to the Saudis every year. Without mentioning the American fossil fuel billionaires that are getting rich. But basically, I mean, is that it? Is that what, not to pick on Tim Ryan, but basically what he should be doing with his ad?
Again, I mean, the candidate is going to do what he's advised to do, right? And what I am telling him, if he hears this ever, is that you're getting bad advice. It's not a campaign strategy that has produced a lot of winners when it's been deployed. More traditionally in the polarized era, it's Democrats still holding on to this old notion of voter behavior, right? So what I would say is this. I mean, you're absolutely right about painting an affirmative brand for yourself, but that's not enough. I mean, I hope Joe Biden's team understands it's good that they're credit claiming. It's good that they're making connections with these child tax credit checks and people's bank accounts. And those things are all important and need to be done. But what really matters is the contrast, right? So if Tim Ryan wants to win Ohio, he needs to make that race a referendum on Republicans, Republican government, the party of Trump, who wants to reinstall this guy who's not only incompetent and ideological and indifferent to human suffering, he is also interested in ending democracy, right? I mean, he tried to end it on his way out the door. He intends to do things that are anti-democratic if he ever reestablishes power. And Tim Ryan is going to tell voters, oh, it's about this issue or that issue, when the other side is telling their voters, this is about life or death, the survival of the republic. This is us versus them. So it's really important that along with that positive branding, you are branding the opponent and making it an unpalatable choice to voters who do have a choice, which is only about 10% of the electorate. And then for the ones who are making the most important choice in this midterm, which is not necessarily vote choice, it's turnout. If that 2018 electorate shows up, the Republicans are going to have a hard day. But if people choose not to show up because they're fat and happy and they're not told, hey, the Republican Party is coming to take this away from you, it could have disastrous complications. So
for Democrats who are organizing and running campaigns, given these basically two pieces that should be a part of their campaign, number one, running on the actual positive things that they are doing, have done, and fully intend to do on behalf of the American people. And then two, branding and labeling the Republican Party, or painting the Republican Party as, shills for oligarchs and crazy people and autocrats and the destruction of the American way of life. Which has primacy? Which should they focus on the most?
No, they must do both. I mean, some of it's going to depend, right? Tim Ryan's race in Ohio, because of realignment, urbanicity, college education, and racial compositions, is that bottom tier of the Midwest, where Minnesota is the highest educated state, and I knew it would be very robustly Biden or Dem nominee in 2020 because of that. And you kind of go down in the Midwest. Well, Ohio has moved away from Democrats. It is, if I was to PVI it like you would in the House, I would say probably R+5 at this point, right? Mm-hmm. So what he has is a little bit, so that's why his strategist is telling him, well, this state is trending Republican, so don't let people know you're a Democrat. That would be one thing in maybe a presidential cycle, and still I would argue against that strategy. But here in the midterm, Tim Ryan's hopes and dreams are going to rise on turnout and interest from the Democrats coalition, which isn't just base Democrats. It's African Americans, it's college-educated women, it's women in general, it's young people, it's Latinos, it's urban turnout in Cleveland and Columbus and all these places. So if you're running this old-school strategy that's built on a playbook that doesn't exist anymore, you're going to be in trouble.
Right. So don't listen to your damn consultants. I get it. Rachel Bitecofer, the founder of Strike PAC, contributor to The Cycle on Substack, and pod host with The Election Whisperer. Her podcast, strikepac.com. Rachel Bitecofer and at Strike PAC on Twitter. Rachel, thanks a lot for dropping by. Great talking with you.